Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night, heart racing, feeling like someone was calling you, but you couldn't explain why? Maybe it was 3 a.m. Maybe it was 4:27. The world was silent, but your soul wasn't. It whispered, it stirred, it wanted something deeper, something real. That wasn't random. That was your spirit being pulled towards something powerful, towards something sacred. There's a reason why the hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. have been known for centuries as the divine hours. It's when the noise of the world fades and the whispers of the soul rise. Science says your brain is in its most subconscious state. Psychologists call it the theta window, when your mind is most open to suggestion, to healing, to change. But long before science, long before psychology had words for it, women across generations knew it intuitively. These hours were sacred, not just because they were quiet, but because in that stillness, something holy happens. Think about it. At 3 a.m., there are no distractions, no messages, no noise, just you, your breath, your heartbeat, and whatever is waiting to be healed. These hours strip away the roles you carry all day. No one needs you to be strong. No one is watching. You are finally left with what is real, and that's when something incredible can begin. If you're listening right now, it means you've felt that stirring too, that invisible pull that wakes you before the sun rises. Maybe you've been ignoring it, or maybe you thought it was just insomnia. But what if it's a calling? What if it's your soul trying to lead you back to your power? Because here's the truth. There are doors in your life that will not open until you learn to knock in silence. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., something in the universe shifts. The energy is different. The air feels lighter. The burdens you carry during the day suddenly feel more honest in the dark. And here's the beautiful part. That's not weakness. That's where your strength lives. In the moments no one sees. In the silent hours when you choose not to give up. Psychology shows that our brains are more emotionally receptive at night, especially during these early hours. This is when your mind is open, not just to dreams, but to transformation, to create new beliefs, to shift pain into purpose, to plant new thoughts into the soil of your soul. What you speak in these hours doesn't just echo into the morning, it plants roots that reach into your entire life. And this is especially true for women, because women carry things in silence that the world often overlooks. You carry memories you didn't speak of. You carry pressure. You carry the need to hold everyone together, even when you feel like you're falling apart inside. But in this hour, you're not a title, not a role, not a responsibility. You're just you, and that is enough. This sacred hour is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's not about begging for what you want. It's about becoming who you're meant to be. And when you say this secret prayer, not loudly, not desperately, but quietly, with trust, something begins to shift. You may not feel lightning strike. You may not hear voices. But make no mistake, something divine hears you, because the universe responds not to volume, but to vibration. And the purest vibration is silent surrender. Here's the reward, I promise you. If you stay until the end of this message, something will begin to awaken inside you. Something ancient, something soft and strong, something you might have buried under years of being okay. You'll remember who you are when the world isn't watching. You'll remember that you've always had access to something greater. You see, there's a kind of strength that's not loud, a kind of power that doesn't shout. It rises in the dark. It whispers when you're alone. And when you connect with it, truly connect, it changes how you carry everything. The burdens don't feel heavier. They feel holy. The tears don't feel like weakness. They feel like cleansing. And every time you wake between those hours, you won't dread the silence. You'll run to it. Because that silence is no longer empty. It's sacred. It's full of answers the world can't give you. So if your heart has been aching, if your mind has been racing, if you've been wondering why nothing changes even though you're doing everything right, maybe it's time to stop shouting during the day and start whispering in the dark. Because that's when heaven leans in. That's when your soul is the loudest. And that's where your breakthrough begins. Women are born with something the world can't quite explain, an unshakable intuition, a deep knowing, a quiet strength that doesn't need to be seen to be powerful. It lives in the way you hold space for others while your own heart aches. It speaks in the choices you make when no one's watching. And it comes alive in the stillness, when the rest of the world sleeps, but your spirit wakes. There's a reason so many women feel a pull to pray, to cry, to sit in silence during those early morning hours. It's not just habit or coincidence, it's something deeper. Psychology calls it heightened inner awareness. But long before it had a name, women already knew. Because your soul doesn't need language to understand what your heart feels. It just knows. And in those hours, when everything is still, that knowing becomes loud. You carry things that no one else sees. The pressure to stay strong, the fear of being too much or not enough, the memories you've buried so deep just to keep going, but you were never meant to carry it all alone. And when you sit in that silence and speak from your soul, even if it's just a whisper, something begins to shift. You return to the part of you that existed before the world told you who to be. That part of you that isn't tired, isn't afraid, isn't lost. That part of you that still believes. You were designed to hear what others miss, to feel what others ignore. And that's not a burden, it's a gift. In those quiet hours, that gift sharpens. Your clarity grows, your energy renews. You begin to remember that the answers are not out there. They've always been within you, waiting for you to get quiet enough to listen. That's why you feel called to wake up during these sacred moments. Not because you're broken, but because something in you is rising. Something ancient, something sacred, something ready. There is power in the prayers no one hears. The ones whispered with trembling lips. The ones soaked in quiet tears. These are not just words. They are sacred releases. They are confessions from the soul. They carry a frequency no scream could ever reach. Because what is said in silence travels further than what's shouted in chaos. The world may not see it, but heaven does. When a woman prays in the dark, she isn't just speaking into the air. She's building a bridge between her reality and her breakthrough. Psychology shows that the mind responds differently in stillness. When you pray from that quiet space, your nervous system calms, your cortisol lowers, your mind begins to reset. You stop spiraling in fear and start rising in faith. That moment becomes more than emotional. It becomes transformational. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need to say the right words or follow the right script. You just need to be real, raw, honest. That's where the power is. The secret isn't in how loudly you ask, it's in how deeply you believe. Even if your voice shakes, even if your heart is broken, that prayer, said at 3:14 a.m. with your eyes full of tears and your soul full of hope, has more strength than any performance. Because it's not about impressing, it's about connecting. You don't need an audience. You don't need approval. In those moments, it's just you and something greater. Something that knows your name. Something that sees the weight you've been carrying and whispers, you're not alone. Every time you return to that quiet space, you're not just surviving, you're healing. You're remembering that your voice matters, even when it's barely above a whisper, especially then. Because the universe doesn't respond to noise, it responds to authenticity. And the most powerful prayers are the ones said with trembling hands but unshaken faith. When a woman surrenders through prayer, something unlocks inside her. It's not about asking for more, it's about becoming more grounded, more open, more aligned with who she really is. That prayer, whispered in the quiet hours, doesn't just shift the world around her, it awakens the world within her. It pulls her out of fear and places her into faith. It removes the need to control and replaces it with trust. Not blind trust, but deep, soul-level, knowing that something greater is guiding her steps, even when she doesn't see the full path yet. There's a sacred strength that rises when you finally let go. Letting go of needing the answers, letting go of timelines, letting go of who you were supposed to be, and accepting who you are becoming. That prayer becomes an anchor in the storm, and slowly, almost without noticing, your inner world begins to change. You start seeing the same struggles with different eyes. You start showing up softer but stronger, more patient, more clear, more centered. These moments of connection shape your identity. They remind you that you are not just surviving your life, you are co-creating it. Each time you rise in the early hours and speak from your soul, you're sending out a signal, a vibration of surrender, intention, and readiness. And that signal doesn't go unanswered. Energy meets energy. Faith meets favor. You begin to attract peace in the middle of chaos, opportunities in the middle of uncertainty, healing in the middle of heartbreak. You may not see the results instantly, but don't mistake silence for absence. The shift is happening in your thoughts, in your habits, in the way you talk to yourself when no one is listening. That is the beginning of transformation. That is where your new story starts. Not with noise, not with force, but with quiet, unseen strength. The kind that builds legacies in silence and breaks chains that have lasted generations. All from a prayer spoken in the dark, believed with the heart, and followed with trust. There's something about the early hours of dawn that carries a softness this world has forgotten. It's the time when the sky blushes before the sun arrives, when everything is still holding its breath, waiting. That's when the energy shifts, not outside, but inside you. That's when you feel closest to something divine, something pure. It's not imagination. It's not wishful thinking. It's a connection, a feeling that you're not walking this journey alone, that unseen hands are guiding you, protecting you, lifting you, even when you can't feel them. This is what it means to be surrounded by angelic energy, not the kind painted in books, but the kind that shows up in moments of stillness, in sudden clarity, in the strength you find when you should have broken. It's that invisible presence that calms you when anxiety wants to rise. It's the sense of peace that doesn't make sense. A deep reassurance that whispers, you're safe now, keep going. Psychologists say that the human brain is most spiritually receptive during the pre-dawn hours. Your conscious filters are down. Your ego is quiet. You're more open to receive, to believe, to align. That's why when you pray in those moments, your words carry weight. They don't just float away, they sink in. They enter your mind, your heart, your nervous system. Your energy shifts because your focus shifts. You're no longer tied to what's missing. You're connected to what's eternal. And in those quiet whispers, a transformation begins. You stop striving to prove your worth. You stop begging life to notice you. You start remembering who you are and who has always walked beside you. The fear fades. The pressure lifts. You begin to trust your journey even when it doesn't make sense. You stop looking for signs in the chaos and start recognizing them in the calm. That's the beauty of this sacred hour. It reminds you that the light doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it comes gently, softly, like angels brushing past your soul, reminding you that you're held, you're seen, and you're never forgotten. Faith doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quietest decision you make in the dark, to believe anyway, even when you're tired, even when nothing around you has changed. Even when your heart is still aching. That kind of faith becomes your inner weapon. Not a weapon that strikes outward, but one that strengthens you from within. It's the kind of faith that rebuilds what life tried to tear down. The kind that allows you to keep moving, even with trembling steps, because something deep inside refuses to let go. This isn't about pretending to be strong. It's about discovering the strength that's always been there, underneath the fear, beneath the overthinking, hidden behind the I'm fine you say to everyone else. When you rise in the early hours and pray, not from a place of desperation, but from surrender, you activate something in your spirit, a new kind of resilience, not hard and cold, but soft and unbreakable. Science supports what the soul already knows. The brain responds to belief. It rewires with repetition. And when you begin each day with intentional thought, spoken prayer, and quiet reflection, you're not just hoping, you're programming your mind for healing, for clarity, for strength. Slowly, the narrative changes. You stop waiting for external proof and start listening to your internal truth. The beauty is, you don't need to be fearless. You just need to be willing to show up, willing to speak, even if your voice shakes, willing to believe, even if your heart is cautious. Because each time you do, your faith grows, your courage grows, your energy shifts, and the things that once held you down begin to lose their grip. What once felt impossible starts to feel within reach, not because the world changed, but because you did. There is no louder power than a woman who chooses to believe in silence, no deeper strength than the kind built in stillness, and no greater breakthrough than the one born from a single whisper of faith. There is healing in letting go, and nothing invites release more than silence. In the early hours, when the world hasn't woken up yet, there is space for you to exhale, to sit with your pain without judgment, to acknowledge the emotions you've tucked away while holding it all together. It's in these sacred moments that the soul softens and what felt too heavy to carry finally begins to lift. You don't have to have it all figured out to begin again. You don't need the perfect words to forgive or move forward. Sometimes all it takes is sitting in the stillness and saying, I'm ready to let this go. Not because the past didn't matter, not because the hurt wasn't real, but because you matter more, because your peace deserves to come first now. Emotional wounds don't heal through denial, they heal through presence. And when you give yourself the gift of presence, you begin to unlearn the patterns that kept you stuck. Psychology shows that early morning reflection allows deeper emotional access. It's when your brain is least guarded and most honest. That's why what you feel between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. is never shallow. It's truth rising to the surface. It's the part of you that longs to breathe again. And when you give it permission, something beautiful happens. You stop fighting your pain and start understanding it. You stop clinging to old versions of yourself and begin honoring the woman you're becoming. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself, releasing what's no longer yours to carry. The shame, the guilt, the weight of stories you didn't choose. These early morning prayers become your personal ceremony of release, not loud, not dramatic, but honest. And that honesty becomes your strength. That softness becomes your power. When you let go in the stillness, you don't fall apart. You rise, lighter, clearer, and more whole than you felt in a long time. There is a language beyond words, a silent conversation between your soul and the universe. You don't always need to speak out loud to be heard. Sometimes, just sitting in that stillness with a clear intention in your heart is enough. That's the beauty of early morning prayer. It's not about saying more, it's about feeling deeper. You don't have to beg, you don't have to perform, you just have to be present and let your energy speak for you. Every thought you hold in those quiet hours is a signal. Every feeling you allow yourself to sit with is a vibration, and the universe listens more closely to energy than it ever has to noise. When your mind is calm and your body still, your intentions become crystal clear. That's when alignment happens, not when you try to force your way through life, but when you allow yourself to trust the flow of it. There's a reason why the most profound breakthroughs often come after a moment of deep silence. It's because silence is where truth lives. Visualizing your desires in this space of stillness gives them power. Your brain doesn't know the difference between imagined reality and physical experience. So when you see peace, you begin to feel peace. When you see healing, your body responds. When you see yourself free, strong, loved, you begin to walk in that reality. Not overnight, not all at once, but in steps. Quiet, strong, intentional steps. This is where your transformation begins. Not in the noise of the day, but in the stillness before it. Not through pressure, but through presence. When you wake early, sit in the silence, and let your soul speak without fear, something opens. You shift from doubt to trust, from fear to knowing, from surviving to manifesting. The words may never be spoken out loud, but they are heard just the same, because the universe doesn't just respond to words. It responds to the heart behind them. When your heart is aligned and your spirit is still, the words you speak carry a weight far beyond sound. That's why this secret prayer is not about the exact words you use. It's about the state you're in when you say them. The stillness, the surrender, the presence. This is what gives the prayer its power. When you pray from a place of alignment, you're not just asking, you're declaring. You're not pleading, you're partnering. You're stepping into a space where the divine meets your desire and responds to your readiness. So many spend their days talking but never feeling, asking but never aligning, hoping but never listening. This prayer is different. It doesn't come from panic. It doesn't come from pressure. It rises from peace, from a knowing that what you seek is already on its way, not because you forced it, but because you became a match for it. The early morning hours are sacred not just because they're quiet, but because they hold a different frequency, one where your mind is open, your heart is soft, and your spirit is strong. This is where the real shift begins, when your prayer moves beyond repetition and becomes a connection, a moment of truth between you and something bigger, a space where you stop pretending and start feeling. You begin to trust that your voice matters, that your energy shapes reality, and that your intentions are creating ripple effects you can't yet see. You don't need to shout to be heard, you just need to be honest. This secret prayer, whispered in stillness, becomes your reset. It clears the fog. It brings your heart back home. It reconnects you with your purpose, your peace, and your power. And the more often you return to that space, the more naturally it becomes part of you. Not just something you do, but something you are. A woman who walks with quiet strength, unshakable faith, and a heart that knows exactly where she's going. When you speak this prayer in the quiet hours, something begins to happen beyond what you can see or understand. It's a subtle shift that moves through your mind, your heart, and your energy. It's like a gentle awakening, a soft call to remember who you really are beneath all the noise and distractions. This prayer doesn't demand instant results or dramatic change. Instead, it works quietly, like the roots of a tree growing deep beneath the soil, unseen but strong enough to hold you steady through any storm. What happens next is not magic. It's alignment. Your energy begins to match the life you're meant to live. You start to notice small signs, an unexpected phone call, a sudden idea, a feeling of peace that wasn't there before. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations that the prayer is working, that your faith is moving mountains inside you, even if the outside world hasn't caught up yet. The real power of this prayer lies in how it changes your inner world. It shifts your focus from what's missing to what's possible, from fear to faith, from doubt to determination. It builds a quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove itself. It's a strength that comes from knowing you are supported, even when you can't see the support with your eyes. This prayer invites you to step into your own power with grace, to trust that the universe hears you even in the silence, to believe that you are not alone on this journey, and to remember that the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you nurture with yourself. When you speak this prayer between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., you are not just asking for help. You are becoming the woman who can stand firm, shine bright, and rise above anything that tries to hold her back. You were never meant to stay small or hidden. Deep inside there is a fire, a silent but steady flame that is waiting to be ignited by your belief and your willingness to show up for yourself. When you say this secret prayer in the quiet hours, you're not just speaking words. You're stepping into a new version of yourself, one who knows her worth, owns her power, and refuses to settle for less than she deserves. This is the moment when you shift from surviving to rising, when you stop asking life for permission and start creating your own path. Because prayer is more than a request. It's a declaration of readiness. It's telling the universe, I am here, I am open, I am ready to receive. And when you say it between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., in the stillness where the world feels closest to the divine, that declaration carries weight. It's not about what happens overnight. It's about the gradual awakening inside you, the subtle changes in how you think, how you feel, and how you move through your days. You'll start to notice your confidence growing, your decisions becoming clearer, your heart healing in ways you never expected. This prayer becomes the anchor you return to when doubt creeps in, when fear whispers lies, and when the world tries to dim your light. Remember, you are not alone. This sacred practice connects you to a greater force, one that lifts you up when you feel weak, guides you when you feel lost, and reminds you that you are made for more than just getting by. When you embrace this prayer, you're embracing your highest self, the woman who walks through life with quiet strength, unshakable faith, and a soul on fire with purpose.